Right now, somewhere on a dealer lot, there's an SUV sitting under $50,000 of window stickers and LED lighting, and by 2027 it is going to be worth roughly half of what the person signing for it just paid. Maybe less. Nobody at that dealership is going to tell you which one it is. That is what this is for. I've spent time with a lot of these vehicles. Crawled under them, watched what goes wrong and when, and tracked what buyers find out about value 3 and 4 years after they drive away feeling great. The numbers on paper at signing have almost nothing to do with what you actually spend once you account for what the thing is worth when you're done with it. Depreciation is the cost nobody puts in the brochure, and according to pretty much every cost of ownership analysis out there, it is the single largest expense in owning a new vehicle. Bigger than fuel, bigger than insurance, bigger than maintenance. 15 vehicles. I want to flag 2 of them right now before we start. Number 4 carries a depreciation figure so ugly I checked the source twice. And number 11 is a case where the manufacturer discounted a truck by $20,000 and still could not move it. We are getting to both. One more thing. Not every vehicle here is on the list for the same reason. Some depreciate badly because reliability concerns are priced in. Some got discontinued, which creates a specific kind of value problem that plays out over years. Some are electric, and EV technology is moving so fast that what looked modern 18 months ago already looks dated to a used buyer. And one, near the end, was a value trap from the day it launched. Let's start the count. Number 1, the Land Rover Discovery. The Discovery is a vehicle with a documented fault rate of 46% according to a what car? Survey of nearly 24,000 drivers. When almost half of surveyed owners report a fault, the used market prices that in without mercy. A 2024 Discovery has already shed $27,175, or 44%, in just 2 years, sitting at a resale value around $34,200. 2 years, not 5. Now think about what the 5-year curve looks like when the first 2 years hit you that hard. That 2024 model sits in the 75th to 100th percentile for depreciation among all 2024 SUVs. Not the worst in the luxury segment, among the worst on the entire market. Consumer Reports expects the current Discovery to be less reliable than other new cars, and that prediction rests on brand history rather than one bad component. When a forecast is grounded in a track record, the pattern is structural, not situational. The expensive version of this mistake is buying one for the capability and the badge, driving it 3 years, and then sitting across from an appraiser who offers you a number that looks like you drove through a wall at moderate speed. If you want British off-road ability, there are better holding ways to get it. Number 2, the Infiniti QX80. This one leads most major depreciation studies, and it is not close. Average drop of 62.8% over 5 years, that is $52,631, consumed on a truck that starts around $83,000. CarEdge's calculator is harsher still. A new $83,750 QX80 likely down 69% in 5 years, landing at $25,500. The quiet killer is the platform. The QX80 shares its bones with the cheaper Nissan Armada while trying to charge BMW X5 money. When a used buyer can get nearly the same mechanical package under a lower-priced badge, you are competing against yourself and losing. Look at the rest of that segment. The Escalade carries all-American cachet. The Range Rover is the status object. The Mercedes GLS is the practical family hauler. Being merely good is not enough to get noticed in a room like that, and the resale market charges you for the anonymity. There are also rumors circulating about Infiniti's future as a brand, and I want to be careful here because rumors are not facts. But uncertainty about a nameplate's survival has a direct, measurable effect on used values. Buyers get cautious about parts availability, dealer networks, and software support, and that caution arrives as a lower offer. Hold that thought, because it comes back at number 4. Number 3, the Lincoln Navigator. I genuinely respect this truck. It is comfortable, it hauls families in proper style, and it drives better than something that size has any right to. None of that protects it. Buyers can expect to lose a little over 60% across the first 5 years with an estimated resale value of $46,000. $206 on a truck that now starts above $77,000 before you touch the options list. That is north of $46,000 treated as rent. The recall history matters here too. Ford has recalled certain 2022 through 2025 Navigators because the image processing module can reset unexpectedly, killing the rear-view camera image along with pre-collision assist, lane keeping, and blind spot monitoring. Software patches went out, most fixed under warranty. But the recall stays in the history permanently, and a truck with recurring electronics entries suppresses buyer confidence 3 years later. If a Navigator is genuinely what your family needs, buy one at the 3-year mark and let somebody else absorb the first half of that curve. That is real money. Number 4. The Infiniti QX50 and QX55. I flagged this at the top. Both have been discontinued, departing the market after losing favor with buyers. A discontinued model creates a depreciation problem that unfolds over years. With no new version to compare against, used buyers default to alternatives still in production. By the way, if you drive an SUV and want to keep it reliable for hundreds of thousands of miles without wasting money at the repair shop, I put together a guide called the 500K Mile Car Care Bible. It covers 101 habits that can help your SUV last longer, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot mechanic upsells that quietly drain your wallet. To get your copy, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or grab it from the first pinned comment below. Your truck becomes an orphan, and orphans sell for less. The QX50's variable compression engine was, on paper, genuinely clever. A motor that could shift its compression ratio on the fly, balancing efficiency against power. In practice, that complexity had consequences. The unit carried documented reliability concerns, and when something that intricate lets go out of warranty, the bill is not modest. The used market has already read that history and priced it before you ever list the vehicle. Now stack it with the brand uncertainty from number 2, because that applies across the lineup. A discontinued model, from a nameplate with an unclear future, carrying an engine buyers are nervous about. That is about as dangerous a combination as resale value gets. If you own one, the window for a reasonable exit is narrowing rather than widening. Number 5, the Tesla Model Y. Here is the exception to the rule that fast depreciating vehicles are expensive ones. The Model Y starts around $40,000 and still loses more than 60% over 5 years. Much of that traces to Tesla's own price changes. The 2020 model launched around $50,000. When a manufacturer cuts the new price of the vehicle you already own, they are cutting your resale value directly, and Tesla did it repeatedly and aggressively through 2023 and 2024. Across all vehicle types studied, full electric models have lost the biggest share of original transaction price at 5 years, averaging a 57.2% loss. The Model Y sits inside that trend, and its enormous sales volume works against it, because supply on the used side is vast. Let me be honest. For a second buyer, a Model Y in 2027 is going to be one of the best value large EVs on the used market. The person who bought it new is funding that bargain. If you got in at peak pricing in 2021 or 2022, you already know exactly what I am describing. Number 6, the Cadillac XT4. Cadillac officially discontinued the XT4 after the 2025 model year. Production ended in January 2025 at the Fairfax Assembly Plant in Kansas City, making way for the next generation Chevrolet Bolt and additional Equinox output. GM is shifting toward electrification and streamlining the lineup. A new XT4 depreciates 51.7% after 5 years against a luxury subcompact segment average of 50.2%. Slightly worse than average, which sounds survivable, until you factor in what discontinuation does going forward. There is no 2026 or 2027 XT4 to anchor used values. Without a current model keeping the nameplate alive in the market's head, used prices drift further and faster. The XT4 arrived in 2019 and got a refresh for 2024, and it still got axed despite solid sales, replaced by electric options like the Optic. Good car, wrong era. The buyers who got in late are standing on the steepest part of the slope. Number 7. The Chevrolet Equinox EV. This one is more nuanced. The Equinox EV is a genuinely capable electric SUV at a sensible price. The problem with its value is structural, not accidental. It depreciates 57% after 5 years, landing at a resale value of $17,757 on a vehicle costing around $40,000. 3 forces are making real-world resale softer than expected. New car incentives and cash allowances on 2025 and 2026 models that undercut used asking prices. A federal clean vehicle tax credit of up to $7,500 on eligible new examples that does not exist for most 1 to 2-year-old used ones. And rapid EV technology progress with heavy discounting across competitors, which trains used buyers to expect bigger bargains. That middle point is the one nobody explains in the finance office. If a buyer can stack $7,500 of federal credit against a brand new one, why would they pay near new money for your 2-year-old example? They would not. That ceiling follows you into every negotiation. Early data suggests the Equinox EV follows the broader EV pattern, steeper initial depreciation than gas SUVs, then a slower slide. Painful for the first owner, excellent for the second. Number 8. The BMW X5. We are past the halfway point and the pattern shifts from here. The first stretch was dominated by orphans and EVs meeting the reality of their curves. What comes next is mostly luxury trucks where complexity was always going to cost you and the market has simply caught up. Number 11 is still ahead and it is the worst story on this list. If you are still here, I'd appreciate the subscribe. This channel covers ownership economics, not just specs and test drives. Now, the X5. Like most used BMWs, it requires increasing amounts of money and time as it ages. CarEdge puts depreciation at 50% over 5 years. CarGurus recommends buying a slightly used X5 before repair costs accelerate, then selling before the serious problems arrive. That is their framing, not mine. But when a buying guide tells you to get in and get out ahead of the problems, that tells you what the problems are. Across model years 2018 to 2026, the X5 averages a reliability score of 50 out of 100, with owners reporting electrical failures, powertrain malfunctions, and service brake issues. Annual repair costs run around $1,166, slightly above the luxury full-size average, with a reliability rating of 2 out of 5. Then there is the owner who posted on a BMW forum after buying a 2026 X5 xDrive 40 in May for $84,000. 6 months later, he checked book value, $64,000, $20,000 in 6 months. He asked whether that was normal. The other members told him yes, unfortunately, that is the norm. That is not an edge case. That is the expected behavior of this vehicle leaving the lot. Number 9. The Ford Explorer and Lincoln Aviator. I'm covering these together because their recall histories are so intertwined that separating them would be artificial. Shared platform, shared production problems, shared consequences. The 2020 through 2026 Explorer and 2030 through 2027 Aviator have both been recalled for a potential safety issue with the rear seat latching mechanism. 387,911 units affected. That is not a bad batch. That is an engineering issue running through most of a generation. The Aviator specifically has been plagued with recalls and complaints, according to Car Complaints. The 2025 Aviator alone shows 13 owner complaints filed with NHTSA and 14 recalls as of August 2026. 14 recalls on a 1-year-old vehicle. Picture what a resale buyer sees when they pull that history. A list of remedies for things that were wrong, and every line asks them to pay a little less. Through the first half of 2026, Ford issued campaigns covering millions of vehicles, many for a flawed rear camera display needing a software reflash or an over-the-air update. Software recalls are cheap to fix. They are not cheap to live with in a transaction because every safety system recall enters the federal database, stays there permanently, and gets read by the buyer's research tool before they open their mouth. Number 10. The Nissan Murano. The Murano has been a comfortable, competent, mid-size crossover for a long time, and it consistently loses value faster than its direct rivals. 53.5% over 5 years, resale value $18,015 against a mid-size SUV category average loss of 48.5%. Underperforming its own segment by 5 points on a $43,000 truck is thousands of dollars. KBB estimates a 2026 Murano will shed $21,949 over 5 years with a residual of $21,016. Add out-of-pocket costs and the total 5-year cost of ownership reaches $57,416. You paid $43. You spend another $57 owning it. Nearly 22,000 of that is just evaporation. No services rendered, no miles driven. There is a question about the Murano's future I genuinely cannot answer, and I'd rather say so than guess. Nissan has been through significant corporate turbulence, and their product planning is hard to read from outside. Whether the Murano continues as a distinct nameplate is something I have not seen definitively confirmed. What I do know is that uncertainty gets priced into used values before any announcement arrives. Number 11. The Dodge Hornet. I flagged this at the opening. Here is the full picture, and it is not pleasant. Dodge discontinued the Hornet after only 3 model years. Sales fell sharply, a 54% yearly decline and an 82% collapse in the fourth quarter of 2025. That is not a soft market. That is buyers voting with clarity. The Hornet was so overpriced that Stellantis killed it. Production ended in early 2026 after the Italian-built crossover got hit with 25% import tariffs on top of an already aggressive $32,000 starting price, in a segment where the Chevrolet Trax starts at $20,000. The plug-in hybrid RT version had 82% of its 2024 allocation still unsold at the end of 2025, even after dealer discounts of $15,000 to $20,000. Read that again. $20,000 off and 82% of the inventory still sitting on the lot. When a vehicle has to be discounted by the price of a compact car and still fails to sell, and then gets discontinued, the resale trajectory is not a slope. It is a cliff face. Owners now face a used market with no new version to anchor values, a brand that has publicly moved on, and a nameplate most mainstream buyers will not recognize by 2027. There is a strong buyer's market for Hornets coming. For the buyer, not for you. Number 12. The Cadillac XT6. The XT6's production run ended with its 6th and final model year 2025, as Cadillac switches its SUVs to electric platforms. It is replaced by the electric 3-row Vistique. The 2022 XT6 already sat in the 75th to 100th percentile for depreciation among all 2022 SUVs before discontinuation was announced. Discontinuation steepens that. Volume was the other problem. The XT6 finished 11th out of 14 SUVs in its competitive set in the first quarter of 2025, with only 4,778 units sold. Low volume can occasionally support resale by keeping supply scarce. It does not do that for a mid-tier luxury crossover with reliability question marks, because the demand chasing that limited supply simply is not there. Nobody is fighting over a discontinued Cadillac that was not selling when it was current. Number 13. The Nissan Pathfinder. 60% gone after 5 years, estimated resale value $18,665 on a truck starting around $38,000. Here is the part I find telling. On a 5-year rate comparison, the Murano loses 55.3% and the Pathfinder loses 55.8%. When 2 vehicles from the same manufacturer are competing for worst in house and one loses that contest, both are underperforming. The Pathfinder loses it. It also faces the Honda Pilot and the Kia Telluride, both of which hold value substantially better. The market is not saying the Pathfinder is a bad truck, it is saying there are better value choices in the same category, and it is saying so with transaction data rather than opinion. Number 14. The Audi Q5 and Volkswagen Tiguan. Grouped because they share one underlying cause, the German engineering premium you pay at purchase does not survive contact with the used market. The Q5 depreciates 54% over 5 years, resale value $24,657 on a truck starting around $46,000. It is a well-built vehicle mechanically. That does not save it because the buyer shopping at $25,000 has many options, and the Q5's cost curve gets expensive right around the time the warranty ends. Volkswagen is not a luxury brand, but its depreciation is still shaped by being German engineered, perceived as more complex and less reliable than Toyota and Honda, and unable to match their resale. CarEdge puts VW's average at 49% over 5 years. The Tiguan is expected to lose 48%. The RAV4 loses 28%. A 20 percentage point gap is not a subjective argument about interior quality or road manners. It is tens of thousands of dollars of real ownership cost decided by actual transactions rather than press trip opinions. Number 15. The Tesla Model X. I saved this one because the story is genuinely complicated. Tesla ended Model X production in 2026. It is a technological marvel burdened by extreme overcomplexity and the very features that make it iconic. The Falcon Wing rear doors, the auto-presenting front doors, the panoramic windshield, get viewed as enormous repair bills waiting to happen by the time it reaches the secondary market. The resale market discounts it heavily to offset that risk. The average Model X loses roughly 2/3 of its value over 5 years. On a notional $95,000 new price, most projection tools land resale in the low $30,000s. More than $60,000 evaporated. Here is the nuance. In late 2025 and early 2026, Tesla discontinued new Model X sales in North America, instantly turning every existing one into a finite commodity. Used Tesla prices, which had fallen hard, found a bottom and started climbing, with the Model S and X among the biggest movers. X values up roughly 10% since the end of 2025, even as many other used EVs slipped. Does that mean it becomes a collector piece? My honest read is probably not at scale. The scarcity bounce is real, and clean high-spec examples with the last of its kind label may hold up for a while. But an EV's resale core is still battery health and whether the software keeps up, and the sentimental premium has limits on a complex aging luxury vehicle with parts that get harder to source as production recedes. If your battery is healthy and your documentation is clean, the next 18 months might be the best exit window you will see. After that, I would not count on the floor holding. Now let's step back, because what these 15 have in common is not what most people assume. It is not that they are bad trucks. Several are genuinely capable and will serve their owners well for years. The problem is not the vehicle. The problem is the transaction, specifically the one where the first buyer pays new car money for something the used market has already decided it will discount aggressively. Nobody in that building is obligated to show you a depreciation curve. The finance office does not print one. The brochure does not mention what the truck will be worth in 2027. Your loan payment is calculated against what you paid, not against what the vehicle will actually fetch at year 3 when something goes wrong and you need out. And here is the part that should bother you. This information exists. It is compiled, published, updated, and freely available. It is not secret. It is simply not profitable for anyone in that room to put it in front of you, so nobody does. Think about what a genuinely honest transaction would look like. Alongside the monthly payment, one line, projected value at 60 months, and the segment average beside it. That figure takes about 90 seconds to look up. Nobody has ever handed it to you, because the moment you see that a Tiguan gives up 48% and a RAV4 gives up 28%, the conversation changes in a direction that costs the dealership money on this deal and every deal after it. So the silence is not a conspiracy. It is an incentive. Every party in that room profits from your attention staying on the payment and off the spread. What you are actually buying is the gap between what you pay and what someone will give you later. Everything in between is what you truly spent. On these 15, that gap is wider than you were told, wider than the segment average, and in some cases wider than the entire purchase price of a different truck you could have bought instead. The people who come out of an SUV purchase in decent shape are simply the ones who checked the spread before signing, who compared 5-year depreciation against the alternatives, who bought the 1 to 2-year-old version at the bottom of the first cliff instead of funding that cliff for a stranger. And there is something worth saying about that beyond money. A number that nobody hands you is not a number you are forbidden to have. 90 seconds of looking it up turns you from someone being sold to into someone deciding. That is a small thing, but it is the whole thing. The person who knows what the curve looks like is not smarter than anybody else in the room. They just declined to let the room set the terms of what they were allowed to know. Let me give you the practical recap. These 15 fall into 4 groups worth tracking. Discontinued without successors. The QX50, QX55, XT4, XT6, and Hornet. Orphans with no new model anchor and no marketing keeping the nameplate warm. Their values will generally drift lower over the next 2 years. Luxury trucks with complexity priced in. The Discovery, QX80, Navigator, X5, and Q5. The market has calculated out-of-warranty repair probability and discounted accordingly. That discount is not punitive, it is rational. Buying used, it is genuine value. Selling, it is real money. The EV curve, the Model Y, Equinox EV, and Model X. Federal incentives that favor new overused, rapid technology advancement, and manufacturer price cuts that undermine used values directly. Battery health is the single biggest variable on resale. Recall history, the Explorer and Aviator. Not hopeless, but requiring active management. When you sell, the buyer's first move is a history report, and what they see shapes what they offer. Here's the procedure I would hand you. Before you buy any SUV above $35,000, look up its 5-year depreciation percentage on CarEdge or IC Cars. Compare it to the RAV4. Calculate the dollar difference on your actual purchase price. That figure is the premium you are paying in lost future value for choosing that vehicle over a better holding alternative. Then decide whether what you are getting justifies it. If it does, that is a reasonable choice and you should make it happily. If you cannot articulate what you are getting for the gap, you have your answer. And if you already own one of these, the question is not whether you made a mistake. It is what you do from here. Get actual trade-in offers, not just an online estimate. Find out what you would net in a private sale. Find out what you would owe after the payoff. The spread between those three numbers is your real position, and it is nothing like the sticker price from signing day. Somewhere down the line, you are going to be standing in a showroom while somebody walks you through a payment structure, and you are going to ask what this thing is projected to be worth in 5 years. Watch what happens to the room. That question is not rude and it is not clever. It is just the one nobody asks, and asking it puts you on the correct side of the table for the rest of the conversation. A lot of what I work through ends up in this comment section before I get back to it, so here is what I want. What SUV do you own right now, and what was the trade-in or private sale like when you got out of the last one? Specifically, was the number what you expected, and if not, which direction did it surprise you? I want to hear from the people who got hit by depreciation they never saw coming, and equally from anyone who bought one of these, used at exactly the right moment and made out well. The real-world numbers in these comments are usually sharper than anything in a formal study. There's a thread here I deliberately did not pull, by the way. Certified pre-owned pricing, and whether the premium you pay for that badge is ever actually recovered on the back end. I keep running into it, and I have not got to the bottom of it yet. Subscribe if you want that when I do. The spread between what you paid and what it is worth later is not an accident. It is the deal. Now you know what the deal is.